Well, hi, everybody. Hey, weirdos. It's me, Dan.
And Jake.
Welcome
No
to...
hesitation.
I know.
No.
Welcome to One Foot in the Grave podcast.
Obviously, the podcast about true crime.
True crime.
And the supernatural.
And yeah, both. All
Both
in
things. Don't bother listening to two other podcasts. You can get all your info here.
one. Do you want to know about past things that make no difference in life? Well, you've come to the right place.
The one foot in the podcast grave.
That's next week.
When this inevitably fails. How many listeners? How many are up?
I don't know anymore. I've been at a conference and working, so I have not done much of anything at all.
I'm doing some
except for work.
funeraling. I'm doing some funeraling tomorrow.
Oh yeah, sad
Or
times.
Aunt Shirley died. She was awesome. Cheers
She
to
was
Aunt
awesome.
Shirley.
She was fucking badass.
She was great, and she had just one leg for the last couple of years.
Yeah,
So like a pirate.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And nice lady, real good.
real good, as they say in the Maritimes, real good.
She was real good. So I'm just having a beer and podcasting and looking at my terrible notes on. And I'm
I
thinking,
wish that
this
I
is
could
not
drink
gonna go
beer.
smoothly.
See, the issue with us doing podcasts from one side of the world is that one of us will always not be allowed to drink.
Oh yeah, because it's 7 a.m. there.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's a tricky little situation. But
Well, you can drink in the morning.
I can, yeah, I could. I also have to pick up the children. So
Get them an Uber.
could you imagine?
I've never been in an Uber because
Really?
I live in Uber-free Maritimes. I've been in
No
a lot of vets taxis, and most of I don't know their names, but they all smell like cigarettes. All my
Well,
taxi drivers.
Yes.
I think there's
yeah.
got to be a strong correlation of driving a taxi and smoking.
Mm. Yeah, probably.
And then the air freshener doesn't help. Now it smells like
Makes it
cigarettes
sound like
and
cherries.
citrus. Yeah. It smells like cigarettes and the smell they use to cover up urinal smell.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. Well, I'm doing Richard Ramirez today. What are you doing?
Yeah, I saw I'm doing the Mary Celeste. I'm the supernatural guy, and you're the true crime guy. Once again,
I don't
back
know.
to our
I've
natural
never-
roles.
Yeah, our supernatural rules.
Yeah.
What? I don't know anything about yours, so that will be interesting. And
It's not
I've
that
only.
interesting.
I think I'm gonna
I'm
have
just
to
gonna give
do.
it-
I think I'm gonna have to do like Richard Ramirez Part 1 and Richard Ramirez Part 2, because this fucking anal fissure has killed a lot of people.
Well, his teeth alone deserve a whole episode.
Oh my
Fucking
gosh. I was doing
horrendous.
research, and one of the research parts is like he started to neglect his personal hygiene. I was like, no fucking shit. Dude looks like Gollum, for fuck's sake. Like,
Yeah.
he's not.
What's crazy
he's
to me
not
is somebody who's obviously too stupid to floss their own teeth has managed to kill that many people and get away with it.
Well, he didn't get away with it though.
Well, he
He's
got away
really
with the first 17 or so.
Yeah, like there was a lot of people that he killed, but he also did not. He didn't do a very good job of hiding from the police.
No,
We'll get
No.
that. Will probably be part 2.
that will be part
That will
2.
be-
The
that will
story
be
of
part
how the dental assassin was caught. I know he was the Night Stalker, not the dental assassin, but that's what I think he should be called.
Did you see
So-
me put his face next to David Hasselhoff's face?
Yeah, they do. They do kind of mix, and
A little
because he
bit.
was the Night Stalker, and you have this thing where you always get confused about celebrities. Do you remember when you thought that Jim Morrison and Jimmy Hoffa were the same person, and you were like, they
Yeah.
never knew where Jim Morrison was buried, and I was like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? He's buried
I
in
know.
Paris. You're like, no,
Yeah.
wasn't he at the 50-yard line maybe? And I was like, no, Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
So Knight Rider, Night Stalker.
I was like, how
Same
could
guy.
they not know? He was so famous.
He's on Baywatch, for God's sake.
Oh, people are strange. All right. Well, weirdos. Today I'm going to be talking about one of our favorite serial killers, rapists, and burglars, Richard Ramirez.
Just to clarify, not really our favorite. We hate we hate these people.
Yeah, no. I mean, they called him the Night Stalker or the LA whatever, but I've dubbed him Anal Fissure.
Yeah.
But henceforth in this podcast, he will be called Ramirez.
Yeah, the armpit skin tag, Ramirez.
I do have an armpit skin tag. Have you?
Well, I've had them in the past. It's quite a coming of age.
Do they come off when you shave?
Usually when I exert my fat body in some sort of exercise, they start bleeding. And you go, oh, why is my armpit bleeding?
Oh, well, that's probably why I have not come across this problem.
Don't exercise and you'll never have to deal with it.
Yeah, don't worry about it, man.
Have you ever noticed, and I don't mean this to sound like I don't like Scottish people, because we are Scottish, but old Scottish women, a lot of skin tags. I don't know what's going on with that.
Maybe because of all the clothing.
I'm going to try and mute it before I...
Oh.
I just missed it. I couldn't.
That was ridiculous.
So again, we also support losing the stigma around GI issues. So we're just...
I mean, there is like, in order to prepare for this podcast, you could just not eat the beef jerky and not drink the soft drink.
I'll tell you what, it's a Pump House blueberry that I'm drinking. Nice maritime. I don't like. Are you a fan of IPAs? I find they just taste like licking dandelion stems to me.
I don't like the really strong ones, but like there's this one here called Fat Yak that I'm a huge fan of, and then some of the other ones.
I'm too sweet.
Yeah, I like a lager usually.
I like a lager or a blueberry ale or a stout. But the IPAs, I can't drink them.
Yeah,
and
I think
all
the IPAs are...
all the high-end craft beers are IPAs, and I feel like I'm missing out on the movement because I'm too wimpy.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing, though. They are becoming such a... Hold on. Am I really loud?
When I look at the thing, you're a little bit louder than me, but that's probably for the best because I've had a fucker of a day.
All right. Well, Ricky Ramirez,
David Hasselhoff.
Crime spree between 1984 and 1985, and then eventually captured in August of 1985. So, he used a few. This seems to be like the most random serial killer that I've come across yet in terms of who he chooses and what he chooses to kill them with.
He just wanted to kill, didn't he? He was inspired by a cousin or something who was like a Vietnam vet.
Yeah, so his cousin Miguel was a Vietnam veteran. And for some reason, I think that, obviously Ramirez didn't have the best family life at home. And I feel like this guy Miguel may have like played a very big role in raising him.
Right.
And later on in life, he lived with Miguel for a little bit. So this, when Ramirez was young, and this seems to be a common theme that I'm coming across, is that when he was young, he fell off a swing and suffered a head trauma, which subsequently made him an epileptic. And
there
I'm wondering,
a lot of head traumas amongst serial killers, and they talk about that on My Favorite Murder too, which it's this other shittier podcast. I mean,
number two murder, and
they try hard. They try hard.
Yeah,
but
bless them.
They're not quite 1 foot in the grave.
They don't have a squeaky fucking chair like we do.
Is that mine going off?
Yeah, it's so very squeaky.
Just want to set the scene a little bit for you. I'm in my shitty office, and I have poor equipment. I'm talking into a cheap microphone.
Well, I'm in my studio.
It's caravan. Like you're here with us.
Yeah. All right. So so he was. Oh, Lord. You know,
Go on.
the more I talk to you, the more I sort of understand these serial killers. Oh my gosh. All
Killed
right.
his
So
brother.
this.
That's horrible. You don't say. Sorry.
What was his brother's name? Stoma? No.
Miguel.
Miguel. Yeah, so Miguel, he was a real fucker. When like Ramirez was just like a kid, he started smoking weed with him and stuff like that, which nowadays doesn't sound like a big deal, but this was back in like the 60s and 70s. So Ramirez was
wouldn't there have
born...
been more weed back then? I don't know.
Well, yeah, but it was super illegal, right? Like it was, you were not doing the right thing, and you knew that you weren't doing the right thing if you were smoking the devil's weed, you know, the doobies.
Right.
So Miguel told him a lot about how he had tortured and mutilated Vietnamese women when he was in Vietnam. And not only did he share the stories, but he also shared the Polaroids. So he showed him a bunch of pictures. Yeah. So like you want to blame the head trauma, but also maybe the family was just like fucking weird.
Private Ramirez, I'm going to pretend I didn't see those photographs.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, fuck, they got away with so much shit back then too. Like, especially like, not only were they like raping and mutilating women, but they were raping and mutilating Vietnamese women, which, like back then, they were nothing. So
they treated them like they were animals. Although, you don't rape animals either. I guess worse than animals.
Yeah, like really, yeah. So
Private
then
Ramirez, what happened to that Vietnamese citizen? Her head fell off, sir. Very good. Back on the chopper.
Oh
Sorry.
my gosh.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how they got away with it. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like somebody would have stopped this.
Well, also, it's like, how did Dahmer get away with raping other soldiers? Like, yeah, it just...
in the personnel carrier.
Yeah,
crazy. Anyway,
I mean, yeah. So anyway, Ramirez was he was present, and when he was 13 years old, he witnessed Miguel kill his wife. So
Miguel's
I mean, he
wife,
wasn't.
Yeah,
he wasn't on the best life trajectory from the very beginning.
Things didn't start out well.
Yeah. So fast forward to 1977 when Ricky Ramirez was first arrested for marijuana possession. After that, he moved to California, where he started using a lot of cocaine and doing a lot of burglaries. This is where he became a Satanist.
I didn't know that.
Really? Yeah, big into the Satan scene.
Well, it started out as a way to make friends, but then I just got really into Satan.
Yeah. You know, I went for the sunshine, stayed for the Satan.
The weather's great, and there are a lot of Satanists. It's perfect.
Oh,
what do you like best about Satan? I think the horns. I don't know. How do you?
Yeah, like what is the draw? I don't know. Like, yeah. Anyway,
I always wanted a forked tail.
Yeah, I think it was the golden fiddle.
His cloven hooves appeal to me.
The devil went down to California. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind. He was way behind. He was looking for, I don't know.
Yeah. He promised me braces. Said he'd pay my deductible.
So yeah, in LA, he was arrested twice for auto theft. And this was around the time that he started to neglect his hygiene. So from the young age of 17, I think he stopped brushing his fucking teeth.
It looks like it.
Yeah, right? Like that picture that I put up. If you want to find us on Facebook and Instagram. We're at One Foot in the Grave podcast, and there are some pictures of Ramirez that,
with his head on David Hasselhoff's body.
Well, no, half his head, half that face is David Hasselhoff. Right. Yeah, it's so fucking weird.
So picture David Hasselhoff with bad teeth, basically.
Yeah, and one blue eye. So, on June 28th, 1984, he committed his first murder. So, it was of Jenny Vinkow, and she was 79 years old. He had sexually assaulted her and then stabbed her to death in a burglary gone wrong. And you could, just from this sort of his behavior after this event, this is what kind of sparked all the other murders and robberies. Like, he just must have gotten this big high out of it, because after that he started, like, there are dozens of victims. Like, it's crazy.
They came fast and furious, right? He did a whole bunch of within a short period of time.
Yeah. Well, so from what I can tell, the second one was in March 17th, 1985. So
the first one was when?
June 28th, 1984.
Oh, so he had a year in between, or almost 8 months.
Yeah. And then he went into the house of Maria Hernandez. He shot her in the face with a .22 caliber handgun, but as she raised her hands to protect herself, the bullet ricocheted off the keys, and she actually survived.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so she became one of the witnesses, which eventually led to his downfall, because a lot of people actually saw him. He wasn't trying to hide his face or anything like that.
Right.
But then her roommate, Dale Okazaki, was murdered. She was shot in the head. And the way that happened was, when he heard the gunshot for Maria, she went into the house, like ducked into the house, and was hiding behind the counter of the kitchen, or I imagine it's in the kitchen. And she lifted her head up like a little prairie dog, and he shot her in the forehead and killed her instantly.
Dale was a woman. I thought Dale was a guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It's a YLE, so I think that's the female spelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okazaki.
Yeah. On the same night, he shot and killed Lillian Yu, or Leanne Yu. Sorry.
So murder. Then 8 months later, he thinks he's up to 3, because he did. He thinks he's up to 4. So he did 2 in one night. Yeah.
So like crazy. So like he's just like he's on this killing spree. Like he cannot stop. Yeah. It seems to me like he was targeting older people, but a lot of what I can find is that some of it's just random and obviously just really bad luck. So 10 days later, so on March 27th, 1985, he goes into the house of Vincent and Maxine Zazara. He was 64 and she was 44. And this is when his MO kind of started. He shot the husband in the head, and then bound Maxine and asked where the valuables were. Then she was brutally assaulted and stabbed to death. And then after she died, he cut her eyes out and put them in a jewelry box. He was dubbed the Valley Intruder. So he was described as a curly-haired attacker with bulging eyes and rotting teeth. So, yeah. So after the Vincent and Maxine attacks, the police kind of put together that they were dealing with a serial killer. May 14th, 1985, he entered the home of Bill Doy and his disabled wife, Lillian. He was 66. I don't know how old she was. He shot Bill in the face with a .22 as Bill reached for his own gun. So, like you and I feel like Bill was like ready for this shit. But he's not fast enough. So he didn't kill Bill though with that gunshot. But then he obviously Bill was subdued after he was shot in the fucking face, and he was beaten into unconsciousness. Then he went into Lillian's room. Stop moving. He went into Lillian's room. He bound her with thumb cuffs raped her, and ransacked the house for valuables. And then Bill later died in hospital. I don't know what thumb cuffs are and whether they still use them. Are they just like handcuffs, but they just go over your thumbs like a tight ring?
Well, I know what thumb screws are. Where they put your thumbs in them and then screw the screws down into your thumbnails so you can't pull your hands apart.
Shit.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, regardless, it didn't sound like a good time.
No.
Then on May 29th, he went into the house of two sisters, so Mabel Bell and Florence Lang. Florence was an invalid, and he used a hammer he had found to bludgeon her, I think, to death. And then he bound and bludgeoned Mabel and then used an electrical cord to shock her. He raped Florence and used the lipstick to draw a pentagram on her thigh and the walls around the house. The women, they were both found alive 2 days later, but Mabel then died of their injuries because she was 83 and her sister Florence was 81.
It just gets off on torturing old people.
Yeah, old people. Like, and I don't know, like, it doesn't specify on Wikipedia, where I'm finding most of my information, on whether, like, he actually, like, he was called a Night Stalker, but I don't know if he actually stalked these people or whether it was just, what's it called?
Just randomly attack them, basically.
Yeah, the opportunity presents itself. Yeah. So the very next day, he went into the house of Carol Kyle. She was 42. At gunpoint, he bound her and her 11-year-old son with handcuffs. Then he ransacked the house. He raped her repeatedly and sodomized her. And he ordered her not to look at him or he would cut her eyes out. Then when he was finished with her, he bound the two, like her and her son, back together and left.
So he didn't kill all his victims. He was like a...
Yeah, it was like, this is burglary. It's just odd, like this behavior. On July 2nd, 1985, he went into the house of Louise Cannon. She was 75 years old. This one was opportunistic, so he had just, I think he had stolen a car or something like that, and he just happened to come across this house. He entered the home. I think from other things that I've heard, I think he was looking for a specific type of door on the house that he knew that he could get into.
The sliding glass doors.
Yeah, so easily broken into. So maybe that's like, maybe it's not so opportunistic, but yeah, so like he was certainly entering these houses at random, but also they had these doors that were easily opened and potentially quiet to open, but sliding doors are notoriously loud. So he entered the home and found her asleep, and he bludgeoned her to death with a lamp. Then he went into the kitchen and got a 10-inch butcher knife and repeatedly stabbed her to death. Then on July 5th, so 3 days later, he entered the home of Sierra Madre and bludgeoned a 16-year-old Whitney Bennett with a tire iron while she slept. He couldn't find a knife in the kitchen, so unlike the other MO, he couldn't find a knife. And he tried to strangle her with a phone cord. Yeah. When he either saw or thought he saw sparks come out of the phone cord, he assumed that Jesus was intervening, and he fled. She
As a
survived.
Satanist, Jesus is his biggest fear.
Yeah, like you think like a Satanist wouldn't be a God-fearing man, but
but they're the most God-fearing because they're like, I've really pissed him off.
Yeah. She survived, but had to get like 472 stitches in her scalp from being bludgeoned. So 2 days after that, so on July 7th, 1985, he went into the home of Joyce Lucille Nelson. She was 61 and she was in Monterey Park. I think a lot of his attacks happened in Monterey Park. So he beat her to death with his bare hands and then and kicking her in the face. And they know this because there was a shoe print left on her face, which matched some of the other footprints that they had found in garden beds and stuff like that from his previous victims.
What a dick knuckle.
Yeah, yeah, he's a real dick bend.
Yeah.
then enter the home of Sophie Dickman. Speaking of Dickmans.
sorry, Sophie. And
Sorry,
family.
Soph.
That was horrendously inappropriate, but just a funny coincidence.
Yeah. He burgled the house, raped her, and this is when he started saying this thing, which is so fucking stupid, but he said, she like, do you have any money? She said, no, you've got everything. And he said, swear on Satan.
Huh.
Yeah, like of all the things that I wouldn't mind swearing on,
yeah,
Satan would be number one.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah. Oh no.
Satan.
Yeah, fuck you, Satan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care how great your cloven hooves are.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah. So then he bought
split tail.
Yeah.
Big
No,
curly horns.
Arrow tail, split tongue.
Oh, arrow tail, split tongue. Fork tongue.
Fork tongue. On July 20th, he bought a machete, entered the home of Layla Nidri. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. She was 66 and her husband Maxon was 68. He hacked them up while they were in their bed, didn't kill them, and then shot them with a .22 handgun and killed them.
What a dick.
Yeah.
What's a machete son for? Wait, what? Never mind. Go ahead.
Son, machete for what? This?
Cutting the hedges I will do.
Jungle trekking I am.
Hiking through the brush I will be. Fuck. I'm one beer. Had one beer. I was like, I'll risk it.
I think we need to be drinking when we do these. So,
but then when you're listening to them in the on your drive to work in the morning, I'm not sure it'll be as entertaining to listen to us. Hey, then he fucking hit her with a machete. It was terrible.
He said it was for the jungle.
Did you call him a dick knuckle? Is that just made that up?
Where did you get a dick knuckle? Anyway, that same night, he went into the home of the Kovanaths family. Oh. I said it right. And so
those are my fat jeans. That was eBay notifying me that my fat jeans have shipped.
Oh, fun times.
I had to
Elastic
buy a fat suit
waisted
for the funeral. Yeah, a dignity suit.
Oh fuck.
I had to buy a dignity suit today.
These names for this family are difficult, so if I mispronounce them, I'm sorry. So, Chainarong.
Smite? Smith? Is it Smith?
Tehe family. Oh, the family.
The family.
So Chainarong, he shot in the head and killed him. Then he repeatedly raped some kid. Her first name, not a random child, and dragged some kid around to make sure that she showed him all the valuables.
That's the wife.
Then, yes.
Okay.
Then he bound the 8-year-old up with handcuffs and he fled the scene.
There you go.
Then he made some kid swear to him that she didn't have any cash, but again, it was the swear on Satan. Yeah. And I'm sure she said, okay, I swear on Satan that I've got no more money.
Yeah.
And then on August 6th, he broke into, and that's what I stopped my notes. So that's where I will pick up.
August 6th. That's where Part 2 will begin on August 6th, 1985.
Yes.
Well, he is a douche nozzle. I hated this guy when it was in the news when I was a kid. And I just...
Yeah, you would have been like 6 years old or something when all this was happening.
But I remember it was like one of the first things on the news that ever gave me nightmares because...
Well, yeah, it's really
so
fucked
gross.
up. Like, yeah, like he... Not only was he doing horrific things, he was also just a disgusting, like an actual monster. Like rotting teeth, bulging eyes, curly hair.
What's crazy to me is that he was able... I guess the problem is you get a gun and people will do what you want them to.
Yeah.
But, in America, maybe not in California, but in America, he was randomly hitting all these houses. Tons of them must have guns in them. You know what I mean?
Well, I think now,
and those guys don't have the laws that we have here in Canada. They don't have to have their guns in a safe and the ammunition in a different room.
Especially
they can have a loaded gun in there.
In their drawer, bedside drawer. And I think August 6th is the first person that resisted him. So I think this person does have a gun or something like that. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned,
weirdos.
We'll do some more research.
Yeah.
Should I do the Mary Celeste? Or are we doing a mini-sode?
Yes.
Okay, the Mary Celeste.
If you've got time.
Yeah, I got time. The Mary Celeste is... the reason I'm doing this one is because there's a Nova Scotia tie-in, so it's kind of local. And it is the name of a boat. It is not a lady. Hence, the Mary Celeste. I don't call myself the Jake.
To him, Mary Celeste.
Yeah. What was kind of interesting about this one to me is that one of my favorite authors, as you know, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, wrote a short
Sherlock
story about
Holmes.
this. Yeah, he wrote a short story about it, and I think he was a bit infatuated with this mystery. And it's also like when I say I'm doing a paranormal story, I'm trying to find stuff that isn't just make believe bullshit, because there are all kinds of make believe paranormal stories, but I'm trying to find like actual mysteries that like the man from Torrid might have been made up, but might have been real. But this one is definitely real, and there is paperwork evidence. All right. The first line in my notes says, December 1884 was the end. Stupid. Anyway, this was a ship. This is back in the golden age of sail. And it was built in Parsboro, Nova Scotia in 1861. And it was initially named the Amazon. It was built for the British. And it was kind of like a little bit of a cursed ship right from the beginning. I mean, that's not a real thing, but it had a lot of bad luck. So the first voyage, the shipmaster fell ill and died on the voyage. Then it got tangled in a fishing weir. Then it collided with another ship and sank. And then it ran aground.
Is it cursed, or is the captain just fucking stupid?
Well, they're different captains. So what happened back in those days, the ship would be owned by a company like East India Trading Company or whatever. And they would hire different captains to take the ship on different routes, because captains knew the routes. They didn't need to know the ship as well, is my understanding.
Maybe, yeah. Who knows? I don't.
So eventually the thing ran aground in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and it was sold as salvage. An American company bought the ship, rechristened it the Mary Celeste, and when they rebuilt it, they added increased tonnage so it could carry quite a bit of cargo. Yeah. And from 1868 to 1872, the ship sailed with no incident. But then, November 7th, 1872, Benjamin Briggs was the captain hired by the company. He was a Massachusetts captain, and they wanted him to sail a cargo load of denatured alcohol. Is that the word? Yeah, denatured.
Yeah, like methylated spirits.
Well, it's alcohol that you can't drink, right? Like methylated, yeah. And I think they use it for refinishing.
Yeah, stuff.
Wood and stuff like that. Stuff. Man stuff that I don't understand.
Yeah.
I have delicate hands and no calluses. What was weird to me is Benjamin Briggs took his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia with him on his first voyage in this ship, going across to Europe. He was going to Spain, I think. At Gibraltar, maybe. For some reason, I noted that she brought a sewing machine and a melodia to provide music to the crew. A melodia is like a little piano. So the last log of the ship is from November 25th. It set sail November 7th. 9 days later, it was found east of Santa Maria Island with no one on board and a missing lifeboat. The boat that found it was a brigantine, and the boat that found it was another Canadian ship, another Canadian brigantine called the Dei Gratia, like D.A. Gratia, or Grateful to God, I guess. Anyway, the captain had his crew go onto the ship and investigate, and they found there were these like old rumors that they found food half eaten and stuff. They didn't find that. Everything was waterlogged, but the ship was under partial sail. It was going on its own. The main halyard, like the main rope for the mainmast, was missing, and there was a lot of stuff that wasn't disturbed. So she had a sewing machine, and back in those days, you had to have a little glass of oil that you poured into it to keep the machinery oiled.
Yeah.
And it hadn't spilled. It was just sitting in the correct spot. The bunks were all made. The heavy weather gear was still on board. The barrels were still in the hold, and there was no evidence of violence. So what happened was this guy salvaged the ship, but it was kind of a mystery of what had happened to the crew. And Morehouse was the captain of the DA Gracia. He sailed it to Gibraltar for salvage. Initially, of course, everyone suspected that he had killed the crew and then stolen the ship. But what they thought were bloodstains proved not to be blood, and they found, like the investigators found, what they thought were axe marks in the woodwork as signs of a struggle. But then when they reconstructed how the rigging was supposed to be, I guess it was from the rigging, and there really was no evidence of any kind of
foul play.
Foul play. Thank you. I understand why that Levi guy said he has to listen to this and fast forward, because I am the slowest talk reader, story recounter in the history of fucking podcasts.
No, I don't. Well, I don't think so. I mean, you're talking about a ship.
It's a boat,
and it has markings on it.
There were markings,
and no oil spills.
Let me go into the salvage court for a brief minute, and we'll talk about the 16 days of proceedings. No,
on day one.
Yeah. Morehouse got ripped off in the end. He only had a crew of 8 people on his giant brigantine, and he split it up into 4 and 4 to sail this thing back to Gibraltar. And he said it was the most harrowing week of his life. And then, first of all, they thought he'd murdered an entire crew of people, so he wasn't sure if he was going to be executed. Yeah. And then finally, when they decided he hadn't, they only gave him 1/10 of what he should have gotten for the salvage, because they still didn't trust him. And they basically, everybody for the rest of his life assumed he was a murderer. But there are a couple theories out of what happened. And what was really cool, actually, do you know who Clive Cussler is? He was a
author?
Author, yeah. He writes the Dirk Pitt novels. And when I was a kid...
I know the name, I don't know the books.
The books like Sahara. Now, there's a movie that everybody hated that I liked. Sahara.
Oh, yeah.
With
Matthew McConaughey. Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked it, and it's like everyone thinks it's one of the worst movies ever made. I thought it was great. Yeah, I'd watch it again. Anyway, so this guy, he writes about underwater engineers. What you having a beer there? It's 7 a.m.
Me? No, I'm trying to light a candle with a Zippo lighter.
Oh, cover up the farts. Anyway, so Clive Cussler. The boat, after they salvaged it, they kept using it for another 5 years, until one guy ran it aground on purpose in Haiti on a reef called Rochelle Reef, and
Rochelle. Mm-hmm.
I guess so. Anyway, he ran it aground on purpose to commit insurance fraud. He was going to claim insurance for all this cargo that was never on the ship. He actually stole the cargo. So Clive Cussler and his underwater exploration team went out looking for the ship, and they found, I think they found the anchor and some metal fragments and stuff. So they did find the remains of the Mary Celeste, and it's one of the greatest mysteries of the sea. Anyway, so the theories of what happened to the crew, before it was running this denatured alcohol, it used to be a collier ship, which is like a coal ship, and it would run coal back and forth. And they wondered if they found one of the pumps on the deck disassembled and full of coal dust. So they thought maybe...
What year was this?
The 1800s, 1872 ish.
What kind of pumps would they have?
They had pumps, of course, for pumping out the bilge, right? Because wooden boats leak. I mean, so
but
you might have to man it manually. I don't know. But
Yeah.
Or I don't know how it
like
works.
a water pump, but on a boat.
A pump for pumping water out of your boat, basically.
Yeah.
They found one of the pumps disassembled on the deck, and they found a sounding rod, like something that you put down into the bilge to see how deep the water is in your bilge, and they wondered if the pumps had stopped working, and then the captain had faulty sounding equipment, and then had decided that the boat was sinking, and they'd taken the lifeboat and taken their chances, and obviously they were never seen again. So that's a possibility. Some of the denatured alcohol was missing. At first, people thought the crew might have gotten into it and there was a mutiny, but you can't really drink it, right? It kills you. So that was kind of dismissed.
Actually, you know what happens? You go blind. So maybe they did drink it. They went blind and fell overboard.
Well, maybe, except there was a 2-year-old kid and the mother. They wouldn't. But anyway, they did think one of the barrels might have ruptured, and this is so scary to me. They think what he might have done, because there was a risk of an explosion, or maybe there was an alcohol fire that didn't really burn the boat down.
Mm-hmm.
They think what he might have done was have the crew get in the lifeboat, tie the lifeboat to the Mary Celeste with the main halyard, the big rope, and then at some point the rope just came undone and the Mary Celeste just sailed away and left them behind in the lifeboat, which to me is the freakiest possibility. But other possibilities, they talk about a water spout, because some of the the ship's sails were waterlogged and stuff, so maybe there was a water spout is like a tornado in the water.
But
maybe
couldn't
it
it just
swept
rain?
everyone off the deck.
Like
Well, exactly.
rain?
It seems unlikely that it would take everybody off the boat.
Yeah.
So my best guess is he thought the ship was going to explode, tied the lifeboat to it to go to a safe distance in case a fire spread or something, and then the rope just slipped off and he was left with the entire crew in a lifeboat. Because they still had lots of provisions on the boat and stuff. Whatever happened, it was pretty horrendous. But it was one of those great sea mysteries. And while I was looking it up, I found another one that was from 1947. It was a lot quicker and probably made up, but no one's quite sure. It was a boat called the Orang Medan.
Ooh.
And in 1947, there were a series of telegraph messages went out to the Coast Guard. One of them was everyone dead on board. No one living.
What year was this in?
1947.
Oh, right.
And
so
then,
they would have had.
Yeah, and then a final message that read "I die," and then it was found by an American merchant called the Silver Star, and they explored it, and the entire crew and everyone on the boat was dead. And then they went to salvage the boat, and as they were coming off it, it caught fire and exploded and sank. And they're not sure if it was some kind of wartime, because you think 1945, maybe there was a nuclear substance on the boat, maybe they were dealing with plutonium or something. But the problem is the Orang Medan was never registered with Lloyd's, which tracks all shipping. And neither was the Silver Star. So there's some question that might be a make-believe story. But the Mary Celeste is a real story, and that was my little contribution for the week. So
well, good job, Jake.
Well, thank you. It's not quite supernatural, but it's a mystery.
A mystery. I like... I love true crime, but I also love unsolved mysteries.
That's sort of my jam, the unsolved mystery realm. Although they're harder to find without debunking them.
Well, and also in the true crime area, it also scares the shit out of me more because... Well,
it's also, it's harder to be tactful because we are realistically a comedy podcast. More than anything, we're just two assholes giving our take on true crime and some supernatural bullshit. So, when you hear about the victims in the true crime thing, you're like, oh, I don't want to make a dick joke, even though her name's Dick. But it's really hard to tiptoe. Dick? It's really hard to tiptoe around some dick. But but when you're talking about the Mary Celeste, it was the 1800s. Briggs and his family would be dead anyway 100 years ago.
Yeah, so many people are dead from then.
Yeah, very few still with
Yeah,
us, unfortunately.
no, not many, except for the, obviously the supernatural ones.
Yes. Yeah,
Who
the
can
wandering
who
spirits.
yes, who can move through space and time to haunt only us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It seems to be they're all from that era, all the supernatural spirits. We've discussed this.
I know.
They never make the modern,
I've got to get my friend Caesar on because he's got some really funny insights into
why all ghosts are in Victorian clothing.
Yeah, like they make them wear it. It's a
They make
prerequisite.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man, homie, don't play that Amish hat. You're gonna wear it and you're gonna speak like a Victorian, or you're going to hell.
Homie, don't wear this scarb.
Hey, is the Night Stalker still alive? Or is he dead?
No. He died of lymphoma, B-cell lymphoma, whilst on death row.
Good.
So then they just electrocuted his corpse.
Yeah, just give him a couple jolts.
Yeah. Hey, here's a question. If you're on death row and you're waiting to be like killed by the government, on purpose, and you have lymphoma, do they give you chemotherapy?
I don't know, but you know what? In California, I don't think they've executed anyone in like 50 years. I'm probably wrong about that, but it's been a long time. So, like, they have a lot of people on death row, but they're never going to be executed.
No, they execute
I assume
them.
they still have to give you medical attention. I mean, they use the alcohol swab before they give you the needle for the injection.
So weird.
I think you have to stick to medical protocol.
It's so strange. And the people who administer that stuff, they would have to be doctors and nurses, right?
Yes.
So
no, I don't know that.
Because
we have a Hippocratic oath. You couldn't.
Yeah.
I don't think you could as a doctor. I mean, you can kill. Obviously, lots of doctors kill people, but and now they have doctor-assisted suicide here, which I assume is just the lethal injection.
I would assume so too.
So I don't know what the ethics are, but I don't think you're allowed to kill somebody who's in good health for no reason. As a physician.
I can't imagine. That's something that you can research for the next podcast.
You know what's funny on the other one? God, My Favorite Murder. You know, the actual popular podcast that people listen to. Just on today's episode, they were talking about it was one of those minisodes where people write in, and she was like, my mom was, somebody firebombed my mom's house, and she met the doctor on call, and that's my dad, and that's how their future started.
Yeah, that's
and I was
illegal.
like, yep, that's illegal. And nobody mentioned that. I was like, yeah, you definitely cannot do that.
Yeah, that's right out.
I'm just going to do your pap test, and what are you doing later? Just out of curiosity.
Shit.
I'm just going to do a bimanual exam, and should we just continue this at my place? Yeah, I don't know. You can't do those things.
But what if someone came into the hospital?
Straight shot to losing your license.
What happens if you're in the hospital? Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the window. Sorry, sidebar. I'm looking at the window at a tree, and there's a snake with its head coming out of the branches, looking at me.
Australia.
And the door to my caravan is open. So
it's like,
I'm just going to
talking about Ramirez. He's one of mine.
Fuck, can you hear it? The birds are going off here now.
Well, yeah, because there's a snake.
Yeah, can you hear them?
You need a cricket bat.
Oh my gosh, no! It's a tree snake. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
But still, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. What was I saying? Sorry, I got distracted.
I don't know. I lost it at the snake.
Oh right, yeah. If you were at the hospital and another doctor was treating a patient, and then you guys just met randomly in the hallway, and you hit
that's
it off,
different. That's
okay. So as long as they're not under
because everybody's a patient, right? Like my wife is a patient at our hospital, but she's not my patient. Now I've had the issue because Dad's sick. Sometimes I'm the only person around who does certain procedures that he might need, and I don't know what the hell I'll do if he comes in when I'm on. I guess I'll ship him to a different city. But
I would just do it.
Yeah, you know what? I've already gotten in trouble even just for asking people to see him. They're real bureaucratic
It's
Sticklers.
strange though, like, because if you're the doctor on call and like your wife or your dad gets sick and it's life or death, then you kind of have to treat them.
I would do it knowing that I'd lose my license, but they will take your license for doing it. They're heartless, totally heartless.
So I guess could you call someone else in that does the same procedures?
Well, that's what you should do.
Oh,
yeah.
right. Well, as long as you can do that.
If there's nobody there, I mean, that's
Well,
and that's the thing when you're like a specialist and a subspecialist, then sometimes you're the only subspecialist. You know,
so I think there would have
which
to
is
be, like,
horrendous because I'm not that good a subspecialist.
Surely it wouldn't be like, hey, you've now lost your license. I think there would be like a tribunal and like you'd go in front of the board. Yeah. And
although there are some things that are just totally black and white. Treating a family member, they're like, yep, nope, you're done.
Yeah, but if you were like, I called this person, no one could come in. He had 13 minutes to live.
They would say then he should have died. That's honestly, these people have jobs just to be bureaucratic.
Dicks.
Yeah. What's the word? What's the word
Assholes.
for? Yeah, there's a
Red tape.
Yeah, there's a word for red tape people. It starts with an O. Fuck.
Oh, ombudsman?
That's a good one. No, it's like fuck people who love red
people
tape.
who love red tape. Starts
Yeah.
with an O. All one word.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know the word I'm thinking of,
yeah,
please write in.
You
It's
fucking
not
weirdos. Where the
obsequious.
fuck are you?
It's not ostentatious. No, it's
No.
odious. For God's sake, odious. It's around that area.
Weirdos, where the fuck are you in terms of sending us your stories, your hometown murders, your supernatural stories? One of my friends, Carmen, has written in and said that she was happy to hear about Ramirez, but that's the only motherfucking person who sent anything to us. So
now I have a
also,
guy.
Also,
there are a couple of people at work who talk to
in
me
our
person.
last podcast, Carmen came forward and told me that she was Dixie Normus.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
There you go.
She denied it. She denied it for years, and then finally she came forward. So yeah, weirdos, find us. One Foot in the Grave podcast at gmail.com. One Foot in the Grave podcast on Instagram and Facebook. One Foot in the Grave podcast on YouTube, and we're also on Spotify, Stitcher, and iTunes.
That's right.
You can message us on Facebook. You can email us. You can find us on the website One Foot in the Grave podcast at weebly.com. All of those are in the description section of this podcast. So wherever you find it, click on that link and it will take you to where you can find us everywhere else. You can also just listen on the website. So find us and send us some emails. You can contact us about anything that you think we might find interesting.
Yeah, tell us about a cryptid you want us to talk about. Timothy Ketchum sent us a good one. It
doesn't really...
I was going to do the Kraken today because we did the Mary Celeste, but maybe I'll save it for next time. Everyone knows that one because
isn't that super glue? Isn't that super glue?
The crackle, the Craigle on the Lego Movie. We have kids. We both have kids.
Also, share this podcast with a friend. Get us out there, and that's the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you can think of that word that starts with an O that describes assholes who love red tape, please send it in because it's going to drive me nuts and I can't even find it on Google.
Well, if Google doesn't know, it probably doesn't exist.
Damn it.
Anyway, thanks for listening, guys.
Yep,
see you
all
next
the best.
time.
See you
Next time.
We'll talk over each other next time. Bye.
Bye.